one big fear, the fear that God will not answer our prayers. Let us analyze the fears which possess us. The fear of lack is nothing more than the belief that God does not and will not supply us with whatever we need. The fear of loss of health, loss of friends, loss of property, all arise from the belief that God is not all that we claim, omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence. So what then is fear? Nothing more or less than the negative uses of faith. Faith misplaced. To correct all the problems of the world would be but to have faith rightly placed, a faith that lays hold of the beneficence of God, the unity of all life, and the integrity of the universe. Now let's place our faith in this affirmation as we say it together with enthusiasm. I use my creative power, which is sourced in the all-power of God, for the highest good. Through faith in the good, I simply plug in, reclaiming innocence, contagious enthusiasm, and a grateful heart. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. So, what would you rather use? Would you rather use a handsaw, or would you rather use a power saw? Yeah, I think all of us who've had the experience, and even if we haven't, we've witnessed it, is that these power tools, the difference where they're plugged into some sort of an electrical current, and now I guess they're battery operated, but they're plugging into some sort of source of energy that makes your projects go smoother, more quickly and easily, right? And life, in truth, is one big creative project, yes? So doesn't it make sense then, rather than to do things simply by physical efforting, that we plug in to the ultimate power source? We do that every time we do our spiritual practice, every time we meditate, every time we use affirmative prayer, every time that we use what we call here the visioning process. And so today, this month, is really all about this idea of plugging in to the ultimate power source instead of our old patterning of trying to do everything through physical effort, which just takes so much longer. So, Emma Curtis Hopkins knew about this ultimate power. I love this quote. Listen to this. She said, "We have unlimited power. We have unlimited power. If we do not use that power, it does not alter the fact that it's our inheritance." And the truth is that we're using that power all the time anyway, consciously or unconsciously. So the idea then is to become conscious of how we're using that power. And we use that power with our thoughts, our words, just our entire attitude toward life and toward each and every moment. So the first power tool that I'm going to be talking about today, spiritual power tool, is faith, as you would have guessed by the quote today. And I'm not talking about just any kind of faith, because we saw that faith can be misplaced. I'm talking about faith that is rightly placed, rightly placed. So we are free beings. We are free to place our faith in or give our power to things that either create happiness or things that create distress. So where are you placing your faith? See, this is the cool thing to realize. Sometimes I've heard people say, I just wish I had more faith. I think I've said that myself. Wish I had more faith. The truth is, this is the really cool thing, is we are born with a full measure of faith. Full measure. Unlimited faith. We are born because we are made in the likeness and image of the divine. We are of the divine. We are born with the faith of the divine itself. Full, entire faith. So here's what happens, is as we move through life, we begin to place our faith that something bad might happen, in a fear thought. So it's not about having more faith, it's about directing the faith that we have in the direction of good and more good, the highest good. So how are you using your power tool of faith in this election? How are you using this beautiful faith that we've been gifted with in this election? It can get really easy to get, if we're not watching our thinking, to get caught up in the ideas that, oh, something bad is going to happen if so-and-so is elected. And the truth is, that is misusing our faith. And what does that cause? We know what it causes. We've seen it I don't know how many of you have seen it in the newspapers, but people are experiencing incredible depression and anxiety around this election because they're getting caught up in misplaced faith, in fear of what might happen. Anybody experiencing that? So this is an opportunity to realign ourselves, put our faith in the direction that's going to make a profound difference. And that is placing our faith in the highest good. Tonight at 7 p.m., James Twyman, one of our favorite New Thought people, is gathering millions of people all over the planet to place their faith in the highest good. 15 minutes at 7 p.m. tonight, I'm going to ask all of you to make a dedicated period of time at 7 p.m. tonight to join us. And whether you tune into him or not doesn't matter. It just matters that you stop for 15 minutes and place your focus on the highest good. And here's the deal, is begin to feel the good. It's about feeling goodness. And if you can place your mind on the goodness of people around you, all the goodness that takes place, the goodness of all the people who gathered all that clothing and supplies and everything, huge. You saw the photo. It was, and the interesting thing is when I got there to drop our things off, they had already filled up that particular container, and they were in the process of filling up a second container. So the generosity, the goodness of people is all around us. And we can think of many, many, many situations of the good. That's what I'm going to invite you to do, is just place your focus on the goodness of life, the goodness of all the beauty that's around us in the fall season, the trees, anything that you can think of that reminds you of the goodness for 15 minutes. Think of the power of millions of people doing that at the same time and directing it toward whatever takes place in the elections, toward everybody who's involved in it, the entire electorate, and then extending it on around the planet, knowing that what is happening is good and more good. Why? Because we claim it. Because it's already there. We claim it, it's already there. This teaching, one of the things I love about it so much, is it puts us in touch with the awareness that good is already happening now. Why? Because of who we are. We're made in the likeness and image of God. We are that individualized expression of good. Good is our nature, our tendencies are in the direction of good and more good, of extending ourselves to other people. When we get into fear, that's not our nature. It's conditioned human patternings that we can move beyond, we can transcend them. I heard something online recently by a man by the name of John Asseroff. I don't know how many of you follow some of his work. It was a brain-a-thon, and I just tuned into one little part of it, but I tuned into the right part. I love how Spirit guides me because I was not going to listen to the whole thing. But when I tuned it on, he said something really powerful. He said, when we decide to change, our brain goes into dissonance, cognitive dissonance. And we know that happens because when we try to change, sometimes we feel, oh, I'm too tired to do that tonight, or, whether it's our spiritual practice or whatever, or a feeling of resistance. We can feel like there's a wall, like we can't break through that wall. Here's the cool thing. Is we have spiritual practices that we teach here that help us to move through that cognitive dissonance, that zone after we move outside our comfort zone into the new zone, that will take us through that barrier, that seeming wall of our patterned ways of being, and into a new way of being that allows us to bring forth that amazing expression of the divine presence that we are, that great goodness. So let's breathe that in for a moment. So here's what we can do around this whole thing with voting. And I talked about tonight at 7. My invitation to you is when you go into the voting booth, if you haven't already voted, is to go in with an attitude of, I'm casting my vote for the good, for the highest good. Think of how much better that's going to be than I'm voting against so-and-so, which is fear. I'm making my vote for the highest good. Everybody say that with me. I'm making my vote for the highest good. Okay. So here's the cool thing is when we truly understand who we are and whose we are, this presence of the divine individualized, then we realize that no matter what happens, everything's going to come out all right for us because we are aligned with that higher good. It doesn't mean we don't take action. It means we're tapped in, tuned in, and turned on to that good so that we are guided into right action. So, well-placed faith. There are 3 components that I want to cover today. Faith that the universe is the presence of love itself, the presence of good, and is conspiring for our good. The universe is conspiring for our good. That's number 1. Number 2, faith in our faith that we place our faith in the universal law of good, knowing that the law responds to our word, our thought. The third one is faith in ourselves with a capital S, with the divine presence that we are, that true self, knowing that the divine moves through us and as us. We are literally, sometimes people say it depends on which stage of consciousness you're in, but the divine is moving through me or as me. And that's full unity when we think of as me. So let's take a look at the first one. This idea of faith, placing our faith in that the universe is conspiring for our good. This particular principle is well over 2,000 years old, and I'm sure even longer because universal principles are enduring. I mean, let's say it might have been discovered 2,000 or more years ago, but it's a universal truth. So I'm going to refer to Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. First of all, in the King James Version, that says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Now I want to give you a translation that's from the Peshitta Aramaic by Rocco Errico, who, by the way, writes a column in the Science of Mind magazine on these Aramaic translations. So listen to the difference. Now, faith is the assurance that things hoped for just as much as it is the assurance of things now in existence. So do you see what it's teaching? That the faith in things hoped for is just as strong as the faith of things that we already see in front of our faces. I just thought that was very powerful. It speaks to how powerful faith is. And here's the second part of it. And it's the unveiling of things not seen. Now, many of you are aware that we are multidimensional beings, that we have the ability to tap into many dimensions at the same time. And we literally, by making choices, bring a certain dimension into expression. Focus on place our faith on the good. We are calling that goodness into expression out of the invisible into the visible. We have that power. We have unlimited power. The Aramaic word that I've been talking about that's been translated into faith is haymanutha, Haymanutha. It translates as confidence, firmness, faithfulness, and trust, all of those tied together. The root word that it comes from is amen, which means to make firm. I think then my mind kind of went to what we say in New Thought, and so it is. Another way of saying, I'm placing my faith in this, and it's firm faith, and I'm sticking to it no matter what. I'm persisting. So faith then is the assurance that things will come to pass. And it's the genuine power behind all things that exist. Everything exists through the power of faith. And that means the fearful things too, faith, incorrectly placed. So as we wake up more and more to who we are and we begin to place our faith in the good, the more we are going to experience the good in our lives. Michael Beckwith says our job is not to set things right, which talks about physical power, but to see things rightly. That's spiritual power. We use the power of our thought to see things rightly, to see the good. So here's an example. There's a minister by the name of Reverend Johnny Coleman, who for 40 years had a really powerful ministry, New Thought ministry. And one of her key messages over and over and over again is God's desire for everyone is absolute good. And she gained the strength of her faith, rightly placed in this statement, because back in the 1950s she was diagnosed with an illness that the prognosis was that she was going to not be here in 6 months. She had 6 months to live. This was the prognosis. She decided not to accept that prognosis. She decided to accept a life that is lived a long time as her prognosis. That was her decision. And so she honed into this idea that God's desire for me is absolute good, including a long, healthy life. And she went on to do that, as many of you know. That's her 40-year ministry. She said this, that God knows nothing of arthritis and diabetes and cancer and tuberculosis or AIDS. God knows nothing of that. That's the divine presence within us that only knows what? Good and whole. That means wholeness. That means health and well-being. So she invited everyone to resolve to pray, knowing that the elimination of these illusions in the minds of ourselves and all people happens right here and right now. And that means the elimination of these health issues in the bodies of humanity. Now, that's a pretty powerful demonstration to request of everyone. But keep in mind that as more and more of us come on board with these ideas, as we claim the non-existence, now that doesn't mean you don't have compassion for people who have these issues. But what we do is we're using the power of our mind to see a higher vision of healthy body, healthy mind, and we're using, therefore, that creative power to bring that into, to reveal that, to bring that into manifestation in our lives. Because if we keep focusing on the condition in fear, we're not helping ourselves. So this is about using, well, again, placing our faith in the right place. So there was an eccentric philosophy professor who decided to challenge his students on their final exam. So he walked over to his desk, picked up his chair, plopped it on top of the desk, and basically said, with everything you've learned this semester, what I would like you to do is to prove that that chair does not exist. And the students were like, oh my gosh. So hands started flying like crazy across the paper. And so as all the others are writing, one student, a minute and a half, gets up, turns in her paper, and walks out. The others write, I don't know, an hour or so. They're writing, proving that the chair does not exist. So when they go to look at their grades that are posted, that student who took a minute and a half got an A. And nobody could figure out why, so they finally found out what the answer, what this person's answer was. And the answer was, what chair? What chair? 2 words, what chair? What if we applied that same principle to the so-called problems or challenges in our lives? What problem? What arthritis? What diabetes? What loneliness? We begin to claim that it does not exist. We're using the power of our mind, and then we're turning to the truth, which is that the only thing that truly exists in the mind of God is wholeness, health, vibrancy, peace, joy, well-being, all good, all the time. So remember that concept of what chair the next time that you find that you're faced with some sort of challenge. Ernest Holmes says, when we learn to trust the universe, we shall be happy, prosperous, and well. We must learn to come under that divine government and accept the fact that nature's table is ever filled. Never was there a cosmic famine. No matter what our emotional storm or what our objective situation may be, there is always an inner being that has never been violated. We may stumble, but always there is an eternal voice whispering solutions within our ears. So say after me, the universe is conspiring for my good.
The universe is conspiring for my good.
Okay, the second one, faith in the workings of the law. So as we place our faith in this concept, that we are surrounded by universal creative substance. We can call it energy, universal law, creative medium. We're surrounded by it. We're filled with it. And when we speak our word into it, and it responds. It's no respecter of persons, because it just simply responds to whatever it is that we believe. So it's not just what we say, but it's what we believe. And the difference between what makes something a belief is a thought plus an emotion. So the more passion we can put into our new thoughts, the more powerful they are. Ernest Holmes says there's a power for good in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it. So how do we cultivate this faith in the good? That's where affirmative prayer comes in. This form of prayer that we teach here is a powerful mode of convincing our own minds of spiritual truth. My messages are set up to carry you through step by step why something is true, so that we can leave behind our old way of thinking and to look at the possibility. However, because I know that we are all free beings, my intention is not to say that it's not okay for you to disagree with me. Of course it's okay for you to disagree with me. But what I'm offering to you is something to investigate, another possibility of how things might be, and to experiment with it and see if it works for you. I just heard this morning of somebody who was experimenting with a principle, right, Brian, who got some really amazing results from experimenting with it and seeing how it works. So we can all do this. We can experiment, see if it works. If it doesn't work, that's fine. But if it works for you, wow, then you've hit upon something that will really make a difference in your life. So here is the thing about affirmative prayer that's very powerful. There is one life. That life is perfect. That life is infinite good. That life is my life now. I'm putting it in a very succinct way. This is an affirmative prayer. So health has always been mine. Abundance has always been mine. Happiness and peace have always been mine. They are mine now, for they are the very essence and truth of my being. I give thanks. I release my word into the law that works for all alike, and so it is. That's a very brief example of the affirmative prayer. It's claiming what is already the higher truth, the highest good for ourselves. So repeat after me. And what I've done is I've taken Ernest Holmes, one of his quotes, and made it personal. So just repeat after me. The law is absolute.
The law is absolute.
I trust its impersonal action implicitly.
I trust its impersonal action implicitly.
It can do anything for me
It can do anything for me
that I can conceive of it doing.
that I can conceive of it doing.
Okay, so my friends, that is placing your faith rightly in the law of universal mind. What would happen if we used that, not just occasionally when something goes wrong, but for each and every project, each and every aspect of our day as we move throughout the day? What if we stayed in this affirmative prayer of seeing the truth? What would happen? Good things. Ernest Holmes says, things that we need, we are to ask for and believe that we receive them. That's what affirmative prayer does. It's a way of asking without saying, could I have this? But it's claiming, by the use of claiming the truth. So again, faith rightly placed is the belief that this law is operating on our word. The third way to place our faith rightly, or component of it, is faith in ourself, with a capital S. Again, realizing we are expressions of the divine, and I love the way that Abraham puts it. You have come into body as a leading edge extension of source energy. I like that. You have come into body as a leading edge extension of source energy. This is the same energy that creates worlds. Your creative genius has access to all creative energy. So universal energy is what I'm talking. Creative energy is yours. And my friend Meister Eckhart, I had to put one in as I continue to read about Meister Eckhart. Listen to this one, this is beautiful. He said, "There is nothing that I can do that is so beautiful as to put complete trust in God." And it says that presence, for through me, God does great things. So as we move confidently in the direction of our dreams, we are showing and demonstrating that faith. So, do mountains move your faith? Do you allow the things that are in the media, all the drama to move your faith? Or does your faith move mountains? Are you a causative presence for good? Because it's not the power of your faith, it's the power of your faith in the one power moving in you, through you, and as you that is well-placed faith. See, it feels when you just say, oh, it's just my power, it can feel, how much power do I have? But when we remember we're using the power of the universe, it's very, very different. So I'd like to end with this beautiful little poem. It says, doubt sees obstacles, faith sees the way. Doubt sees the darkest night, faith sees the day. Doubt dreads to take a step, faith soars on high. Doubt questions, who believes? Faith answers, I. So I want everybody to stand up. We're going to do, this is, for those of you who are new, we do this every once in a while. This is called power position. We've learned this through NLP, and we hold our heads up high, shoulders back, and repeat after me. Today I use the power of faith.
Today I use the power of faith.
By placing my faith. In the highest good. And so it is.
And so it is.
All right. Woo!